at the year-to-date figures and saying, then why did we create these metrics?
All right, good evening. Good evening. Can everyone hear me? All right, great. You guys look good.
So
I don't know why I turned on my waiting room. I didn't mean to do that. That's going to be annoying. Okay. Enable waiting room. Let's turn that off. There. Okay. Good evening. It is Monday the 26th at 6 p.m. We are recording. Are we recording? Yes, we are recording. Okay. So first of all, wanted to say welcome to the class. It's going to be a good one. This is essentially a rewrite of a class that we used to offer called the rehearsal to the concert hall. And it essentially brought you through picking your repertoire, getting into the concert, and really taking a big step back as a music teacher and making sure we're planning this whole journey from the macro level. And I know that this is the time of the year in the fall where you probably are like, I'm pretty good to go. You know, I have my plans set, but hopefully this grad class will be either that you can rework your plans or become even more organized with your plans for the year, or that you take this information in right now and you kind of harness it and then kind of really roll it out for next year maybe. But either way, as you all know, and we're going to kind of get into some quick introductions here, but as you know, it's never too late to change your plans. It's never too late to go into your classroom and be like, forget everything I told you for the last month. We're going to do this now, starting right now. And your kids are probably going to be right with you. That might be you at the end of this class. You might also only have to tweak a couple of things, or maybe an idea sparks a new idea for how you need to change a few things in your class. But either way, I hope the content is helpful and, of course, inspiring and helps you as a teacher. So that is kind of a quick little introduction to the class. We're going to kind of get into going a little more into depth module by module this evening. So it's more of like an introduction walkthrough of the class. I know that the YouTube videos that you watched were from like a previous run of the class. which is why I gave those to you last week. But I wanted to make sure we were a little more specific about this exact class and how it's going to run. If you've never taken a class with me, my name is Glen Schneider. I have kind of an interesting career. I started out as a K-3 general music teacher. And then I moved into teaching 5th grade band. And then I moved into teaching 6th through 8th band. And then I moved into teaching high school and eventually college. And so I've kind of done it all. And I think all those experiences have really helped giving me a very broad understanding of what it means to be a music teacher. I know we probably have mostly band directors here, but some choral, some orchestra usually are in the mix. I always think it's interesting how, even though we're all music teachers, we have very separate ideas sometimes. And this is one of those classes that will hopefully bring us all together on the ideas of, no, we're music teachers. And that's what I consider myself even today. Interestingly enough, I don't know if you guys follow me on Facebook or know me personally from the Illinois area, but I actually quit my full-time teaching job recently. So my VanderCook job is like my main music teaching job. And I also teach the Naperville Youth Symphony, which is a pretty big youth symphony program in the area here. But my day-to-day job is actually not in education anymore. I'm now an operations director for a real estate company. And so one of my buddies had approached me about having this business in the area that they needed help running the business from a high level, and kind of threw me out like basically an offer that I couldn't refuse, and a really cool situation, and I get to change my day job. So this job that I've had with VanderCook for 7 or 8 years, teaching online, is really like my one true passion that was non-negotiable in continuing to be a music teacher. I never want to stop talking to teachers and seeing, what I can do to help them either organize their ideas or push them to drive the philosophy of what they do in their teaching, because I really do feel and believe that all of you, no matter what stage in the game you're at, whether you're 55 and you're about to retire, or whether you're a second-year teacher and you're jumping into your master's program, I really do feel like everyone has the tools and the musical skills to be successful. But sometimes it just takes taking a grad class or being in a group class like this to just encourage you to take a next step of, yeah, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to for once pick that piece of music I never thought I could do. All right. And so this class is really meant to just be like an encouragement from my career, and then all of our careers combined, all 29 of us in the class, that all of our like hive mind brilliance that we've acquired over the years, that we're all going to pour into each other through these discussion posts and assignments. So it's pretty exciting stuff. Let me share my screen here for a little bit. And we'll get into some Schoology stuff. Okay, good. You should be able to see my screen. Can you see my screen, everybody? Cool. Okay, so we'll rock it into Schoology here for a second. What I wanted to do tonight is show you essentially where we're going with the class. I don't have everything published right now because I don't really want everyone working ahead for like 8 or 12 weeks. It really makes the class get really dispersed and unorganized. There will be a point around the week before Thanksgiving where I open up the rest of the course and let you go crazy. And if you want to finish it in like a day or two, you can finish early at that point. But from this point until the middle of November, I'm going to want to keep us all kind of on the same sidewalk, if that makes sense. So we just got finished with Module 1, Philosophy of Music Education. Well, I'll back up just for a second, sorry. In case you need the syllabus and the course overview, it's right there. I think all of you read it because you had to do the discussion posts and probably needed to read this first, but just in case you're looking for it, there's the syllabus right there. Okay, so module 1 was kind of just for fun. It was 2 things meant to get everyone arguing just a bit about the agree and disagree thing. That was an article that I read back when it came out. What was the published date? Like 2005 or 6 or whatever. It's an old article by Budiansky. And when I read it, I was a younger teacher, probably year 5. All right. So if you're a younger teacher right now, if you're around the 5-year mark, you probably know what it feels like to be me. When I was back then in 2005, I read that thing and I went, man, this guy is a jerk. And he's totally right. One of the things that also kind of shapes my thinking, by the way, is that my mom and my dad and my grandma were all band directors. So I grew up like going into the rehearsal room. I grew up at the dinner table listening to all the complaining about, there's not enough tubas and the kids can't play their scales and this and that. And then I went into the field and got into it. And so I had a lot of like sort of theoretical ammunition in my brain. But when this guy threw this idea out there, it was like, wow, this is really challenging because this is from a parent's perspective, right? This is from a parent sitting out there with quite a lot of knowledge, but sitting there going like, man, is this the best we can really do, this repertoire? This is the best that we can offer my kids. So I thought that was kind of fun. Does anyone want to just chime in with a comment or two to kind of summarize the discussion? I was hoping that somebody could maybe, in the fact that you read through the whole thing and you had to respond to some people, like now that the ideas have all settled, does anyone want to give like a quick summary, like a 1-minute summary of our discussion as a class?
Hi, I'm Bridget. I think that what was interesting was that even though we were put in a position of having to state agree or disagree, after reading most of the posts, it seemed like many of us could see points on all sides. So that seemed to be a common theme throughout the whole thing. We've been in that place, we get it, but here's why and here's other things to consider. So there seemed to be a pretty much consensus that there were valid points on both sides of the argument.
Yeah, it's really quite impossible to like really agree or disagree with this guy because it's kind of an amateur article, right? But still, I still think it's valid. So anybody else want to say something? Well, great. Bridget, thanks for chiming in. The Google Sheet and Google Slide, I know all of you are very capable of doing that. However, the last time that I did this class, I met a lady. She was from Massachusetts, and she did not have a Google account, and she did not know how to do Google Slides. She kind of got the idea of Google Sheets, of course, because it's Excel, but Google Slides like racked her brain. She'd never really used PowerPoint. So if you think assignment number 1 and number 2 were easy, yes, they're meant to be, but I just didn't want to leave anybody in the dust. So it's kind of a gimme assignment freebie. Module 2, which we're in now, is going to take 2 weeks. And I am giving you 2 weeks because for some of you, I know you're in marching band mode, or you just started school like 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So I totally get that you're like in your eyeballs, up to your eyeballs with marching band, or getting started with things. But I want you to take the next 2 weeks and I want you to pick out a ton of music. Okay. And you need to pick out all the music for all your ensembles. So if you teach 3 ensembles, you better have 3 piles of music. If you teach 2, you'll have 2 piles of music, and maybe your 2 groups combine or something. You could use the combining ensemble as a 3rd group or something, right? If you only teach one ensemble, then you just have one ensemble. But those of you that have these big programs where you're balancing, tons of ensembles, it's like, too bad. You're going to have to just do extra work for this class, because that's the whole point of taking this class, is that you're going to get organized for all your ensembles. Now, I can't go on your website and check that you have 4 bands on this sheet that you're going to make, but really you have 5 bands. You guys, just do me a favor, just do the work up front for the next 2 weeks and pick a ton of music. Now, when I say a ton of music, I'm talking about, like, on your desk, you should have like piles of scores or piles of arrangements stacked by ensemble, grade level, whatever you teach. Even if it's twice the repertoire that you're actually going to play, that's okay. That's good. As a matter of fact, that's probably a better situation than having too little. Like, let me give you an example. If you're a choral director and you want to sing a Baroque piece or a piece in a particular language, have 5 pieces in that language, 3 pieces in that language that you're going to eventually whittle down to 1. If you're a band director and you're like, oh, we got to have a march on this concert, dude, have like 5 marches. Have 2 Susan marches, have a Carl King march, have a concert march, have an Italian march, whatever, just have choices. We'll whittle them down later, but I want you to pick like your absolute favorite stuff right now that you really think will go well for each of these groups. Okay. And along with just this building of a repertoire list that you think you're going to perform, you're also going to get into that repertoire is the curriculum article by Robert Reynolds. Good old H. Bob. Did anybody go to Michigan, by the way? Raise hand. Anyone go to Michigan and have H. Bob? I did not. I did not go to Michigan. My twin brother went to Michigan and was in H. Bob's band, but not me. I went to Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. I don't know if any of you know where that is, but right downtown Pittsburgh, Duquesne. If you know, back in the day when I was there, it was Tim Lotzenheiser, Dr. Tim. He was on faculty back then, and all these super cool people. It was a great time to be there. So now I live out here in Illinois, in the corn. But yeah, my brother had a great time playing in H. Bob's band, and I've taken some classes with H. Bob as well, and I really feel that this article, another little bit outdated article, is very much applicable to today, because it talks about the curriculum is your repertoire, right? Now, many of you, I'm sure if you've taken other classes and gone through philosophy classes before, you may have been introduced to the idea that the repertoire is not the curriculum. Maybe you've thought, well, all the skills and the concepts, the theory, the scales, the pedagogy piece, that's the curriculum, the method book, the ensemble skills, the writing, the concert reviews, that's the curriculum. The repertoire just supports the curriculum. And what he's kind of saying is like the opposite. Is like, no, the repertoire is the curriculum, and everything you do to play band literature or choral literature supports that. And I think just like the Budiansky article, I think you can argue it from both ways. But I'm for the purpose of this class and the purpose of the assignment and getting going here, try to put your head in the idea, in the space that the repertoire is going to drive everything that we do here, because that is kind of the purpose of the class. Now, I taught for 21 years. I went back and forth, by the way, on this topic. There were some years where I got really, really bogged down into saying, man, my kids don't play well, so I need to develop like this ultra organized checklist of things that they need to be able to do. And it's going to be like scales and theory and ranges and rhythm sheets and blah, blah, blah. It's like everything that, yeah, kids should be able to do that. But what happens when you go down that rabbit hole, and maybe you've all experienced this before, is that you tend to kind of take the love of music out of the music, because you're so shackled by the weight of these skills and techniques that you're like, wait a minute, I did this because I wanted to play this great piece of music. And if you think about it, that's why kids join your music class. They don't join band or orchestra or choir because they can't wait to sing in this particular tessitura range, right? Or that they can't wait to learn their altissimo fingerings. No, man, they just want to play awesome stuff. And so if you consider that like the motivation for what we're trying to do here, it's exactly that, is we're trying to nurture our own love and of course our kids' love for music. Now the Google sheet that is in this assignment number 5 looks like this, and this is basically the start of the sheet that is eventually going to look much longer and much more filled out than this. All right, but here is like what it could look like after these 2 weeks, is you have all of your concerts listed, and then you have your repertoire listed, and you've got your composers and arrangers. Leave out all the rest of this stuff because you're going to have time in the next subsequent modules to fill out all these things. And by the way, I made this look purposely messy. I made this like probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I've kept it all this time. Your assignment can look as crappy as you want it to. I don't care. If it looks like a very much unfinished piece of graduate level work, I'm going to be like, good, this person is like busy and teaching and a human being. Great. It doesn't have to look perfect. Look at this one, Wind Symphony. All right, this is like, this was the second band at Mattia Valley High School that I used to teach. So, you know, I had 4 or 4 pieces picked out for each concert. I couldn't tell you if we played everything on this list, but it was probably most of it. Here's a marching band list. Those of you that are deep in marching band right now, put all your marching band literature up there. It'd be cool to have a listing of it anyway, so that you have it for your records. But you're teaching marching band, yes? So like, I think you should have it on there. It's legit teaching, and you got to like, for instance, in this band, Star Spangled Banner, Francis Scott Key, John Philip Sousa arrangement, we played the A flat version. So I had to teach those kids how to play an A flat if they were new members of the marching band, right? So it's like, not like marching band can't be on an instructional document. Jazz band, if you teach a jazz band after school or jazz band's part of your workload, get it in there. That counts as well. I'm a jazz musician myself. So like, I want you thinking of your jazz band just as much as you do for your concert groups. And then this is another group that I used to teach. We played very little music because we only performed at like 1 concert essentially. But we played 1 piece at our winter concert. And then we always played like 1 or 2 pieces in the spring. This was like a symphony orchestra taken out of all of our orchestra and band classes. All right, so I didn't have to do a whole lot of work to get this group ready, but I want it on the list. Okay, so again, this doesn't have to look perfect, but get all the music that you have picked out right now on your performance and title columns. Okay, so that's all you have to do there. Let's go back in to the module. All right, and then there's an assignment here that basically responds to the repertoires, the curriculum. And you're all going to go into this assignment. You have to list out 13 things that the article essentially teaches you how to think about. And I'm sorry, 12 things. And then you have to write a 13th. And that I would like you, so that we can see some sharing of ideas here, I would like you to take that number 13 and paste it down here in the comments so that we all can see everyone's number 13. So we're going to have 29 number 13s from that assignment. All right, pretty easy assignment. The big assignment for these 2 weeks is compiling your repertoire. All right, let me just breeze through the next couple of modules so you can see the flow of the course. I am recording this tonight, so you can go back to this if you need to, just to understand where we are as we get further and further along. So the next module, another 2-week module, is some discussion posts. And then you're going to be updating the Google Sheet that we're looking at. And this one, as you can see, asks you to put in audio links, the score to a couple of them, composer and arranger information, and the discussion posts are going to have some readings and things that you'll need to do those weeks. So that's a pretty easy module. Module 4 is about score study and prepping your scores so that you know what key they're in, you know what rhythms you have to teach, you know what ideas come out of the piece. And all that information is going to go into the spreadsheet so that you can start looking at, oh, this piece is an E flat, this one's an A flat, this one has a modulation, I have to teach what that is. This one is a 6/8 march that goes into 2/4, you know, whatever it is. And you're going to be looking at all the skills necessary to teach your repertoire from a high level. I think this is probably the best module because this really is the class. The class is called Plan Your Year, right? And so this module in particular helps you say, I have to play in the key of D flat in May. And right now it's October. So I'm gonna tell my students that we have to get around the circle of fourths scale sheet all the way to D flat, because we can't play the piece in May unless we know that key. All right, and maybe you don't tell them that, but maybe you're hinting at that, getting them excited about that. Hey, there might be a piece coming up later, guys, where we have to do this. Okay. Or maybe you want to approach your rehearsals a little differently. Maybe you want to sight read all of your music in the fall for the whole year, and then go back and start whittling the music and rehearsing it. So maybe you're gonna wind up having all your music passed out in the fall as a result of this class. But we're going to take a look at some cool score study techniques that I think save time and are pretty fun. Then we're going to get into your Google Slides. I love using Google Slides as not only like an agenda for the class to see during the rehearsals. Like I'm sure many of you have like an agenda on your smart board or your screen behind you. I know most of us have those now in our rehearsal rooms. And I would have my agenda, right? And so we're going to talk about some cool ways to structure your agendas, and then also have some really slick, cool slides to go along with your repertoire, ways to teach and keep organized with your Google Slides. And so that'll be a really fun one. The reading that week is the 33 Ps of a Wonderful Rehearsal, which is taken from Peter Boonschaft's book, Teaching Music with Passion. One of my favorite books of all time. If you don't want to buy it, this chapter is probably the best one out of the whole book. But I would recommend getting that book. It really changed my teaching for the better. And if anyone knows Peter Boonschaft, man, he's the best. He's the best. I used to have him as a kid growing up in New Jersey. He was like an honor band director in the area because he taught out at Hofstra in New York. And so I used to see him as a kid. And then when I grew up and became a band director, he started to be a really famous author. And it was just really cool to see, like, oh yeah, I remember that guy in All-State Band and Region Band. He was like the real deal. And everything he writes is just gold. So we're going to check that out. Module 5. Module 5 is going to be taken from a resource called The Perfect Rehearsal. And this is going to get even more into like instructional order, sequencing. And it's going to be like, what is the right order for teaching the music or the concepts in a piece? Should you reveal all the skills to the kids at the beginning and then leave no curiosity at the end? Or do you reveal little pieces of the piece as you go? Like, right, that's sort of like that CMP model, if anyone knows what the CMP is, right? The CMP sort of talks about like unraveling the piece for the kids instead of just sight read and hammer for 3 months, right? So we're going to talk about some of these strategies for keeping your kids engaged and loving learning a piece, and that being that the sequencing is done correctly. If any of you know the readings or the writings of Bob Duke from Texas, we're going to get into the book Intelligent Musician or Intelligent Music Teaching. That's probably the best book I've ever read for being a music teacher, was Intelligent Music Teaching by Robert Duke. If you've not seen that book, I would highly recommend making it part of your repertoire of reading. And then we'll just be updating our Google Sheet this week, and we'll be sharing our rehearsal agendas. Let me click on this and make sure. Let me see if I can pull up something here. Oops, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to update that when I get there. Let me go back one. So like this is an example of like some instructional things that we're going to take a look at, is how much information your kids are able to digest when you're performing a piece of music. Is some of you are very technical directors, and your kids know what key the piece is in, and they know what rhythms or how rhythms are counted in the piece, but like they have never seen a picture of the composer, right? Or maybe you're the reverse. Maybe you're like a macro teacher and you love teaching about feelings and emotions and the story and the history and all that like sort of cross subject material, which is great. But maybe you lack the technical side in your teaching. So like these are just some ideas that I used to put together for my classes to make sure that they know, like, oh, Ralph Vaughan Williams, there he is, you know, and talking about the first suite and the second suite. And oh, this is all like during the time of the Titanic sinking and getting some historical perspective. You know, I know you've all talked about this and been, you know, I know you've probably been doing this, but do you have stuff ready to go with your repertoire that will force you to teach these things? So this class is going to make you create some things for this repertoire list that forces you to go, you know what, I have a really cool slide to go along with this piece of repertoire. And I built it in my grad class and I got grad credit for it. And then maybe these assignments will basically become habits for you moving forward in the future. So that's an example of, you know, of creating slides in Google Class, in Google Slides. All right, assessment. Everyone loves assessment, right? So we're going to be talking about assessment and stealing great assessment ideas from each other. So like that's why this one's called Steal an Assessment Idea. Hopefully these come up here. So like for this assignment, we're actually all going to be creating a slide on this document. So this will be 29 slides long. And you're all going to get sharing permissions on this. And we're going to create a group slideshow that essentially runs through like a really cool assessment technique. All right, this one called Connecting Lessons is going to be talking about how to, like I said before, connect music to other subjects. So I used to do a piece of music called Art in the Park by Robert Sheldon. It was like on my rotation of pieces to do it was like a grade 4, grade 5 level piece. You could do it with like a pretty advanced level high school band. And anytime I would do that piece, I would call the art teacher, and Mrs. Parenti would bring her AP art history class down to the band room for several lessons during a week. And they would sit in my band and rehearse the piece based on art history techniques and knowledge. And then they would give like advice to the band about like how the music should sound based on the techniques in the piece. And then they would get up and also give a lesson about chiaroscuro or the scratching techniques in the paintings that were done. So I had some cool, fun ways to connect art to music. I also would do, for instance, right here, a lesson on the harmonic series using flexible tubes. And I would run the kids through like, speed of air and harmonic, functions. And then we would learn the fingering charts on brass instruments based on the harmonic series. So it's like a science lesson, right? So anyway, we're going to have 29 cool things that you all do, plus mine, to talk about how to connect kids to what they already know in school. And then we're going to get into this reading right here, the habits of musicianship. This is really more like of a nuts and bolts idea of assessment and talking about the micro details of do we know what we want our kids to know, and do we have a way to find out if they know it, right? So that's going to be the assessment piece. Is going to be a lot of kind of big picture stuff all the way down to the nitty gritty stuff. And you're still at this point updating that Google spreadsheet, by the way. All right. With assessment ideas. Oh, we have 2 of these. Oh, look at that. That's not supposed to be there. Okay. Module 7. Concerts. So as you can see, we have moved from planning the repertoire to sequencing rehearsals to assessment. Finally, we get to the concert. All right. And so the concert module is going to be ways to engage your audience about the learning process that has just taken place for the last 2 or 3 months. Ways to engage your audience with slides or information, maybe kids giving program notes, maybe kids conducting, doing demos, those kinds of things. And reading some more fun articles about, like this one in particular, this orchestra's engage your audience, the lack of engagement that we typically see at a lot of concerts, especially in schools. All right, because we think we have to get our audience in the door and out the door, and that's the goal, is that they all leave happy. But unfortunately, a lot of us miss the opportunity to engage and educate our audience, who are eventually going to be like our biggest stakeholders, right? These are the parents that let their kid quit music or not. They are the ones that go, I don't think you're done after 7th grade, buddy. You need to keep going, man. Mr. Schneider, what he was saying at that concert, there's a bigger picture here than you playing the saxophone. This is an experience that you need to have all the way through high school. And I really believe that sometimes the concert is the only time when you truly get to prove your point and say, this stuff is important, and this is why your kid should study music all the way through college. So the concert module is going to be kind of wrapping up the idea of how to give a great concert and also some advocacy. Last but not least, the final project is going to essentially be, you're going to have worked on this slideshow all the way through the semester. You're going to turn in your slideshow as a completed project. It's pretty simple. And then we are going to create a collaborative Google spreadsheet. There's a video on how to do it, where everyone is going to have access to everyone's spreadsheet and repertoire and lessons. So everything you've created, there's going to be 29 times that information that you can have shared with you. So basically, in a nutshell, this class is nothing more than you planning out your year, your repertoire, planning all the way to the performance, and then sharing it all at the end with all of you people that are in the class. All right. And my goal, I think, as a community here, is that through the discussion posts, through our interactions from time to time, is that you're going to start having like little cliques of people that you really connect with in this class. Like, hey man, I really jive with this guy. He teaches the same levels that I do, and he's only one state away. So maybe we could even get together at some point, maybe get our bands together. I'd like to get a relationship going with this person. Right? Or it's like, well, maybe all the choral people will be together, or all the orchestra people will be together, because they have different repertoire and different techniques. So that's my goal is that this community of people here that we have will really come together in some ways to help each other out. A challenge that I want to throw out, that I throw out to all my MECA classes, especially this large of 29. This isn't the biggest class I've taught. I think the largest one I had was like 44 people in one class. Does anyone want to guess which topic that was? 44 or 43, something like that. The class was band warm-ups. That's how many people want to know about band warm-ups. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so in a large class like this, the challenge that I want to give to two people. One, to the younger people in here. So you guys that are like in your 20s, essentially, 21 through 29, let's say. You've only been teaching a couple of years. Maybe you've changed a couple of positions, or you've kind of worked your way out into what you want to do finally, and maybe you're feeling a little bit settled. I want you to use the older people in this class as a resource. Ask them questions. Randomly send them messages if you need to, and be like, hey, I know this is awkward. I'm the girl in the MECA class. I'm just curious about, like, you had mentioned this in the discussion post. Like, do you mind sharing more about yada, yada, yada subject? I guarantee you that that person will get back to you and be happy to share. I guarantee it. All right. The other side of the puzzle is that anybody who is on the other side of the spectrum, that you're nearing the end, that first of all, please share, because you have so much wisdom. But secondly, that you kind of try to re-engage yourself and ask yourself the tough questions that this class is asking of you, and maybe make the last 5, 10, 15 years of your career drastically different based on your philosophy. Because I know what it's like to become an older teacher and watch younger teachers come into your program and go out of your program, or watch a younger teacher come in and struggle and then try to help them and mentor them. And I also know what it's like to hang on to ideas that you know in your soul are wrong, philosophically just not working anymore for you. Maybe it's the way you learned, and now you're like, man, this doesn't go with contemporary education. And say to yourself, I think I can change. I think I can do some things differently. I think I can finally make the idea that I had 10 years ago that I have been ignoring. I think I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to give you all one example of that. The example is student conductors. This is one of many topics that I feel very passionate about. But student conductors are highly underutilized in music education. All right. I think we all know that the one place where student conductors are utilized is where? Someone chime in. Where do we use student conductors and see student conductors all the time?
Marching band.
Marching band.
Marching band. Yeah, and what's funny about that is we turn over this ensemble that has every single thing working against it. And probably every piece of the fabric of a marching band should not be turned over to a student, and we do it anyway. Think about it. You take an ensemble and you take away their music. And then you spread them out over 60 yards. Sometimes you have them turn around. They carry their instruments. They're playing instruments that don't even like really belong outside sometimes. And then you tell them to march around and go backwards and forwards and trust each other and play really crazy hard stuff. And then the wind and the rain and the lights and all that stuff. It's like, I cannot believe that we're willing to turn this over to a bunch of kids. And yet we do it every Friday night and at every band festival. We're like, we walk out on the track, we get them all ready to go, we warm them up, and then we go, all right, take it. And these guys get it done every single time, right? And they always inspire us, right? And we're like, man, I can't believe how well that went tonight. I'm going to add some more things in now. I'm going to make it harder, right? And then we go into concert season, and they have the music in front of them. They play it for 4 months. And we never turn over the baton to these kids. And there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe very able conductors in your band, choir, or orchestra that could be up there. And the piece of the philosophy that really, really started to bite on me was, if a student is on the box conducting the group, where does that leave me? That leaves me in the audience assessing my group for the first time. You actually get to hear your band. You actually get to see if they can do it without you, right? And I would argue that your audience attendance would go up massively if 5 or 3 or even 1 kid was known to be a conductor on the next program. How many grandmas and uncles and neighbors and other students that don't even play instruments would show up to watch that kid conduct a piece, right? And so I'm bringing this up because this was something that started to really bug me as a music teacher around year 10, maybe 10 to 15. I started to go like, I really like doing this. I was doing a little bit of it in class. I would let the kids warm up the band or conduct a chorale or something. And then I attended a festival, a band festival. Very traditional band festival. You're wearing tuxes and dresses, you're playing hard music, you got the big time judges in the back. And this band comes out, and the director was wearing a tuxedo as well. And he walked out on stage with them and gave them a couple comments quickly, quietly, while the kids sat up or set up, and they tuned. And then he walked off the stage, and like the second clarinet player stood up and got on the podium and conducted the opener. And I had my band in the audience watching this. And all my kids, of course, what did all my kids do? They turned to me and made one of these looks. How come we can't do that? So what am I thinking? I'm like, let's hear them and see if they're actually any good. This could be a disaster, right? The band starts in. These guys were phenomenal. And the conductor was really good too. Piece is over, kid sits down, another kid gets up, a flute player gets up from like the second row flutes, comes up, conducts the second piece, finishes, and by the way, it was awesome, sounded great. And then the third piece, a student teacher from a university walks onto the stage, conducts the third piece. It was their big hard piece. Conductor was sitting in the audience the whole time, the band director, watching this all go down. So I ran up to him afterwards and I said, man, I've never seen anybody like do a whole program with only student conductors at a festival. Like, how did you get the confidence to do that? And he said, oh, I hardly conduct anymore. I love letting the kids conduct. I actually give conducting lessons once a week during my lunch. And all the kids bring their lunch and we conduct. We learn how to do patterns and cues and stuff. And the kids get like a 10 or 15 minute conducting lesson a week, and a couple of them show up and those are my conductors. And I was like, man, that is super cool. So we went back to the school, of course, and talked about that. And I started to do a little more of that with my band. And sure enough, man, like they were completely capable of doing that. And it was one of those things where all I needed was one person to inspire me to take the leap of faith to let it happen. And as I was finishing my 21 years of teaching regularly, regular, full-time teaching, I was letting my kids conduct a lot. I wouldn't say that they were conducting everything, but I was letting them conduct. I was letting the jazz band play all their pieces without me conducting, right? Jazzers, you're like, of course, yeah, that's what you do. And I was letting my orchestra that I conducted, student conductors, come on up. I'll have a string player and a wind player and a percussionist, each on the 3 pieces. All right. And so this is just one example of an idea that drove me nuts philosophically. I never really knew how to do it. I then had an example put in front of me and I went, no, it's time. It's time to make this happen. And I'll never probably be able to tell you the feeling that you get at a performance when you're standing on the side of the stage behind the curtain, watching your kids perform without you. It's like the next level. It's you feel like you've prepared them on another level beyond what you're normally capable of. Now, take that example, extrapolate it out to like other topics. Like, why don't I play Pop's music? Why don't I play these composers? Why don't I sit my group in this arrangement? I've always wanted to, but I knew that, people would like think I'm crazy. Why don't I start a new ensemble made up of contemporary instruments? Why don't I do that? All these ideas that you probably are like, I got to do it. I got to do it. I got to do it. Let me tell you what happens. 10 years goes by like that. 20 years goes by like that, and you never do it. All right. So like this is a class about repertoire and planning and concerts and the whole deal. This is a time to like really start planning and stretching your brain to do the things that you've always wanted to do. I mean, think about it. This is a grad class and everything you do here could be completely fake. I don't know your program. I don't see your kids. I don't know what's actually going on in your classroom. So essentially it's all theoretical. All right. So everything you write in this class could be hypothetical. Everything you write in this class can be like your dream. And then it's just a matter of going like, all right, now I'm going to go into class today and actually do this. All right. So that's the premise of the class, everybody. That is what I want you to get out of it. That's how I want you to think about all these modules. I hope that this time kind of walking through the class has been beneficial, and now you kind of know where things are going. As you can see from the way things are organized in the modules, essentially there's always going to be some discussion, either 1 or 2 discussions, and then some updating of our assignments in the Google Sheet or the Google Slide. I'm always going to give you a template for everything that I want you to accomplish in here. That way you can just pull it up, put in your ideas. You can change the format if you want, but it's a starting point. All right. And then you submit it in and everyone should get an A+ in this class no matter what. All right. Like I want everyone to get an A+, like you already have an A+. Okay. So that is it. Does anybody have any questions before we end? All right. Well, to adjourn the class, somebody in the class has to tell us the best book that they have read recently and how it's changing their life. Could be on any topic. Someone's got to chime in, then we can turn off the screen. Go for it, people. Come on. I know you guys are readers.
I'll go.
Thank you.
I read, I forget the author, but I can send it out at some point, but it's Servant Leadership in Higher Education. And it's really great because it talks from a business standpoint first, and then kind of goes into all the hangups that happen, between colleagues and and different things like that. And it's really kind of made me think about servant leadership from the podium and how I can work with students from that angle. It's a really great book.
That's awesome. I'm actually experiencing like this really weird shift in my life, taking my day job and doing more of a business model. And I got to tell you folks, there's no difference between teaching and business. There's always fires to put out and, you know, agendas to create and planning and all the stuff that you do every day. It's like, I thought maybe it'd be a lot different. And a lot of my skills as a band director have moved perfectly into what I do now. But I love that you're taking it from wherever the author wrote it and putting it into your own ensemble. It's really good. And where do you teach?
I'm at Mason High School in Mason, Ohio.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thanks for sharing. That's great. So servant leadership for higher education. Is that the
I'll
book?
drop the author into one of our posts this week if anybody
Okay.
wants to check it out.
Yeah. Great. All right, guys. Well, that's it. If you, I'll stay on for a few questions. If you have some things that you want to discuss, like after everyone leaves, I'd be happy to stay on for a few minutes. I always do. Otherwise, the next meeting is October 24th at the same time. If you can't make it to that one, I will record that one as well. You certainly are welcome to come to these and see them live and interact with me and the other people in the class. We'll have much more to talk about at that one because you actually would have created quite a bit of content by then. But yeah, if you can't be at that one, we'll record that one and you can watch it at a later time. All right, that is it. And everyone have a great night. Hope you have a great rest of the week. Thanks.
Hi, Glenn. I do have just a quick thing. So I have a somewhat unique situation. I'm teaching in a high school. I'm a choral director by trade, but I am in the process of rebuilding a program that has been defunct for over a decade, and so forth. And I'm a party of one. So right now I'm teaching all juniors and seniors general music as a graduation requirement. I am looking to start a choir as an after school. So in this particular class, it's going to be a combination of that hypothetical that you were saying, because my hope is to get it going. But I'm also looking at creating a possibility of, so we have there's no concerts, there's no anything at this point. So in terms of putting in that sheet, that is going to be hypothetical. Although I'm hoping to put something together with other parts of the school, where maybe I can have my general music kids, if I can get them to do it.
Well, you know what, I would just focus on the hypothetical ensemble.
Okay.
I've taught this class probably 4 or 5 times, and this comes up every year. And it's a great way for you to like essentially have like your blueprint ready to go, so that when it does become a thing, you're ready to go. If you
Perfect.
wanted to, you could even do like, this is totally up to you, but you could also do like hypothetical 1 is like, I recruit some kids that can actually sing and then we can do some cool stuff right away. And like hypothetical number 2 is more of like a training program repertoire thing where maybe it's junior high kids involved or it's easier music. So like you could do something that's more of like a long-term vision for repertoire, and then starting out like your initial repertoire, right? It's up to you. But I think you'll get something out of it with that.
Oh, I'm sure.
I wouldn't try to force the general music thing into this unless it actually has a good result.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't put a square peg into a round hole here.
Right.
I'd rather see you work on the hypothetical than try to work the general music classes into
Okay.
this.
All right. Sounds good. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Great.
Cool. Thanks. Peace.
Anybody else?
Yeah, good evening. It's nice to see a fellow Illinoisan in here.
Yeah.
So I would like to do a little bit more of a kind of a realistic approach to kind of what Bridget was mentioning. So I'm at a generally a middle school, and it's a Title I program, and again, I'm trying to rebuild a band program that's been defunct, and for several years, and then COVID happened as well. And so I guess I just wanted to, I guess, just kind of gives you a heads up on where I'm kind of thinking, and where
That's
my
good.
mind will be going on that. So
Good.
you know,
I've had people in all kinds of weird situations. I had a person one time in this class that wasn't currently even teaching music at all.
Yeah.
So like, I think if you're rebuilding something and you're really, really starting from scratch, it sounds like you're nearly from scratch.
yeah, it's in year 2 of a rebuild, and
Yeah.
does a lot of exploratory learning, I say, and then a lot of diversity in the learning as well.
Yeah. So I mean, just start listing it out. There's nothing wrong with giving as much thought to a grade 1 piece that your 6th graders have to play than considering whether you should play the first or second whole suite. Like, it's the same exact thought process. So yeah, take your time. And I think for you, this is a great time to gather, like, year 1, year 2, year 3, maybe. You could do it that way.
Okay.
Or you could do like, I'm going to pick so much darn repertoire that we can barely even get through, just because I want to sight read a lot with these kids. Maybe your goal this year is to sight read a lot, because the goal is not to perfect and become like the Eastman Wind Ensemble. So I say go with whatever you think is right and pick a lot of music.
Good. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Azim, what's up?
Hey, Glenn. I just popped in. I know that the meeting started at 6 p.m. CST, and I had thought that the meeting was 2 hours long. So, but it
It's okay,
seems like
man.
it's basically over.
Yeah, I recorded the whole thing, so it's available. I'll probably put it up tomorrow morning when it gets done downloading. So all good. And you were in my class this summer, right? Or was it
It was last fall.
weren't you like in the directed listening model, or what were you in?
Band warm-ups class.
Oh, okay. That's right. I recognize your name. So where do you teach again?
Milpitas Christian in San Jose, California.
Man, that's cool. Cool. And how's your year going?
It's challenging because this year I'm taking on like teaching Bible classes.
Oh yeah.
So it's the extra amount of teaching there. It's like 8 hours of teaching Bible because it's considered a core class. And I just don't have as much time as I did last year to prepare and plan for my band classes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. When I was teaching at Wheaton College, which of course is a Christian college, and lots of time spent on biblical studies and things for the students. It was even like, yeah, this is a college band, but we started every class with a prayer and devotional. And every now and then I would get like this, like, I'd be like, man, we got to get more, we got to milk more minutes out of these rehearsals. Like, cause like the devotional would take some time, and I didn't lead the devotional. The kids had a crew of people that would do that. And then announcements and prayer time and stuff like that. And it wasn't that I wanted to, of course, get rid of those things, but it was like, man, how can we whittle that down a little bit or get it more streamlined in rehearsal? And the more and more I tried to do that, the more the kids would be like, hey, this is more important than the music. Remember that, And I think just be grateful you get to teach in an environment like that, because I know it's hard to balance it all, and probably you're doing more of that than even music teaching, but it's cool that you get to do both for your job. That was always, it's like, I wish I could just teach band all day, but it's like, well, yeah, but you also get to talk about your spiritual life, which is really cool too. So just, yeah, savor it, because I think a lot of people wish they had that.
Yeah. It's
But let me
a,
know how I can help with scheduling and, just feeling balanced.
yeah. Right now I just need to do my homework and be on top of things.
Yeah,
So
you'll get it. You get it. You get it. Well, cool. Well, thanks for being with us and looking forward to seeing you get through this class. It's gonna be good.
sounds good.
All right. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Take care.
You as well.